Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Beitz. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's Zoom Men's Roundtable. We're talking about how to start new habits or how to change habits. And you might have a habit in your life, something that's going on, something you've been doing for many years that you would like to stop. We discuss that. You also may think, I want to start doing something new. So how do we get into the habit of continuing to do what it is we want to start doing? And we have some excellent information for you today. We've got Charles Clay and Andrew Short and myself discussing all about our experiences and things that we've learned through the years of how to form new habits that we will enjoy and how to decrease or stop some of those things we do in our life that we don't enjoy so much. So listen in. It's great, valuable information for you. Pretty cool. And Andrew, you came up with the topic of
habits, how to form them, how to break them.
habits. Yeah.
And if you're happy, Doug, I might just try to frame it a bit for us. And we look at this mightn't go now, but it's something that's real for me. And I don't know of anyone out there that's always batting AAA plus on habits. And certainly I'll just briefly try to frame it in terms of what some of the opinions are, and I really will say opinions because it's a bit of an subjective area. I come across a Scientific American article, which because for a long time, for some reason, I had 2 weeks in my mind, that you need 2 weeks of, daily repetition before you can be a chance to do it. But the science appears to be a bit longer. That says average around 66 days, with a range being between 18 and 254 days. So, and I think that respects that everyone's different, and it depends on what sort of habit we're talking about for a start. There's the 2190 rule, which says that you need 21 days to form the habit, and then you need 90 days to make it a permanent lifestyle change. I hadn't heard that one before, but that's there. But as I said, it can be quite a subjective area. And I'll use an example, personal example. Charles, Doug knows this, but my preferred headspace and health area is swimming. So I get in the pool and I'm up and down those laps, looking at that black line, and I have this incredible mindfulness that goes with that, and also the health benefits that come from it. Particularly now, I'm getting close to 60. The gentleness of swimming for me is extremely positive. But I struggled through this, particularly when I was working, and because I was in an executive role. One of the first things to go when things got tough was my swimming, and then I'd be looking over my shoulder, going, got to get back there, got to get back there, got to get back there. And then for me, for whatever reason, I used to realize that once I got back in the pool, I needed 2 weeks of being very consistent to be a chance to keep going. And so I'll admit, I've been on and off swimming probably 100 times throughout my life, and it'll probably happen again. But there are things that can derail you for a day or two, but I'm talking where you get derailed in terms of your habit. And the final thing I just mentioned before we just have an open chat is I come across, this was nice, the 4 laws of habit formation. The first is the cue. The second is the craving. The third is the response. I imagine that means your personal response to the situation. And the fourth is the reward of, imagine forming a better habit or a new habit or an old habit that you've jumped back into. And even sitting there this morning, waiting to come on, I started contemplating whether we're talking about lifestyle habits, alcohol, relationship matters, whatever. It's a plural thing. And I imagine each of those big subsets would probably have some nuances around habit forming and how easy or difficult it is. So I might leave it there. So I suppose I'm sitting here as a person who's interested in becoming better at keeping and then if necessary forming a better habit.
Yeah. Charles, you want to go?
Yeah, I love this topic. And I think everybody can relate in one way or another. And it's interesting to dive in on, whether it's something that we know intuitively that we need to release and let go of a habit, or something that we really, fills our cup, like swimming and like pickleball for me, that is a good habit that can elevate your state and your being and keep your cup full more consistently. And there's what's worked for me and for a lot of my clients is that a real simple system that is essentially rebooting the whole dopamine system, within us, like that reward center in our brain that's released, and whether it's a craving or something that we're abusing, that we're seeking an experience and a feeling from it, right? So we can use the example of, like, let's just say like smoking cannabis, right? So it's like it can be used as an escape. It can be used as a means of seeking a feeling or an experience. And so when you have a system that allows you to access those same chemicals, the same, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, adrenaline, like these neurotransmitters and hormones that are already within us, this pharmacopoeia that's within us, how to access those more naturally, then it can be really helpful on a path to releasing negative habits and gaining some more good ones. And so that's been the kind of the basis of my system that's been very effective for, we use that same example. Like my personal story was like, Charles 1.0, I was got to a point where I was abusing cannabis and, had to come to terms with that. And I feel like the first step is truth, just being really honest with yourself. Like, man, okay, like I'm past denial. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's when we're like recognize like, hey, this isn't serving me anymore. Like I feel like this like need for it, or I'm using it as an escape, or it becomes an abusive substance where it's not serving you. That's kind of step one, right? Is getting real clear on, hey, this is my truth. I recognize this isn't serving me anymore. So what's beneath this? Why is it that I'm called to this so much, right? So, it's interesting in Chinese medicine, we understand the lungs represent grief, right? So when I was resorting to smoking cannabis a lot, it was apparent to me that I was using it to escape feeling some heavy emotions of grief. And so that was, the truth that I had to come to terms with, and then allowing myself to actually feel what's underneath that. And that would come up every time I felt the need to use. And so that's where, my entire inner peace process has been very helpful, because it's a way of going step by step into resolving the source of why we have these addictive tendencies in the first place, and allowing our bodies to metabolize that energy that's been stuck. It's like I didn't know how to process loss, when I was 10, like I do now. And so there were still some pieces from my 10-year-old self that, and some stories that were created after experiencing loss that I didn't fully process, and were still like issues in my tissues. They would get poked and prodded and triggered, until I go to the source of that. And that's what's great about the inner peace process, step by step, how to go to, the parts of us that need the most love, support, and safety. And for me, that was my 10-year-old. I lost my mom at that age. And so it was devastating to uh, lose the woman I love the most, and then, have to deal with this grief process that I, didn't know how to then. This isn't taught in school, and so it was a lot of it would come out as repressed anger and repressed grief. And so it was really tough for me to access those emotions. And so I got really good at finding ways to avoid that and seek other things, which became habit forming, like smoking cannabis. And then that became very apparent that I was, unmotivated, wasn't accomplishing the goals I wanted. It was like steering me further and further from my path of my highest path of purpose, and sharing my God-given gifts and dying happy, so I don't have deathbed regrets. So that habit was getting in the way of that. So taking it through this step-by-step process, reconnecting with that inner child and getting to support him through that experience in a new way, like different than my dad was able to then. It's like going back and getting to essentially rescue that part of me and recognize the story and the decisions that were made then. Like, man, when I was 10, it was like dealing with something devastating like that kind of loss. It was like, that's where a lot of the I'm not good enoughs and the, I must not be worthy of keeping the love of the woman that I love the most around. Right. And so that's where these stories and these decisions that we make about ourselves are made. And then those will keep showing up in our experience. For me, it was like, went to college, met my college sweetheart, dream girl at the time, and like had the best relationship ever. And then a year into it, circumstances, we had to do the long distance thing. She didn't want to continue with that. So she ended up leaving me. And so here again, I felt this common denominator of grief. Still wasn't great at processing it then, but picked up the pieces, moved on, got into years later, met another gal I fell in love with. Guess what? She ended up leaving me. And so this is when I really got this big ping of like a way to go to the source and resolve it from the first time I experienced that kind of grief and allow myself to finally have those tears, finally process what I couldn't then. And in doing that journey, getting to rewrite the story, like, knowing what I know now, getting to revisit that inner child and share, this isn't true anymore. You're more than worthy, more than enough. And you don't, this is all a choice. So that was profound for me and super healing, and getting to change that story by allowing my body to metabolize the energy that was stuck from that I didn't process then. Then what was fascinating was that I didn't have the same magnetism towards cannabis. And it made it much easier to take space from that and give it up. And with that, it was easy to gain some really good habits. Working out more, things that really boosted my testosterone, and going on bike rides more. That's when I lived in Encinitas. So that was my favorite thing to do, my cup filler. And so developed a system where you take what you're ready to let go of and begin with a healthy reward system. And these are I call them healthy rewards and healthy celebrations, because it's not the same as like, hey, let's celebrate, go out and have beers with friends. That's fine. There's a time and a place for that too. But this is more like, how do you access that natural pharmacopoeia that's already within you, the feel good emotions and hormones and neurotransmitters, and that everybody has their own list. And so you create that first, and there's different categories. There's like the restorative, relaxive type of healthy rewards. There's the, yang, like the active stuff. And then there's also a category of like creative endeavors that can be really fulfilling as well. And for me, that was like playing the handpan and getting to do some raps and some songs and writing. So that every time I felt the urge or a craving, there was that pause. I could use breath to kind of slow it down, recognize what was happening. All right, I'm avoiding something. What is it I don't want to feel? And I could take it step by step through the inner peace process. And in doing that, release another layer of grief or anger or whatever wanted to move through me. And then it was easier to choose one of the healthy rewards that, or two of them that would fill my cup naturally. And every time in doing that, you're rewiring your brain to, wow, it feels good to make this healthy choice. And then it's like resetting that dopamine process and allows you to take space from the substance that's not serving you. And over time becomes easier. There's always life's curveballs, when the going gets tough and we're not like fully centered or our cup's not full. It's easier to give into those urges. So it's good to have a system, like a process and some tools you can use in the midst of those cravings. And this system has worked really well for myself as well as a lot of my clients around the world. So it's a real topic that's dear to my heart because it's amazing how people can elevate their life just by releasing a bad habit or two and adding in some healthy rewards and healthier habits that fill your cup more consistently, like swimming in your case, Andrew. And so it's a fascinating topic, and just excited that had some success in this regard, and it's still a work in progress. I'm not perfect at it, but I've certainly come a long way.
Charles, do you feel a bit like what you've just shared with us actually has the added benefit of being a reaffirmation for you?
A reaffirmation?
Yeah. Well, you're recommitting. You've just openly recommitted to it, or spoke for it. But I find that there's a simple expression. What twice to teach. That's right. To teach is to learn twice.
Mhm. Right.
And so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like becomes more embodied when you can teach it. So, and we're all students and teachers in our own way, but it's definitely, it starts with a commit. I always start with truth and commitment. It's like, hey, this is what I got to get real honest about my life that's not serving me. Here's the effects of it. And then tap into your why. Why is this important to choose something better and develop some better habits? And then a commitment to that. And that can be really useful to have, a group, a container, whether it's men's groups, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's even just some close friends that you can count on, and let them know that, hey, this is what I'm taking space from. Here's my goal. Here's what I'm working towards. Love to have you as on my side, on my, in the ropes with me and supporting me in that, keeping me accountable. And that's what I feel like is a key point in like long sustainable success with this is having, I call it like a support net that you can fall on of people that you can count on, and that you've opened that conversation with them so they know their role in that, and vice versa. And so it's really cool because then all these other beautiful things come from it as well, which is like a deepening of connection with those friendships, the ones that can hold each other accountable and be honest with one another, which creates more intimacy. And so yeah, the benefits are endless. But it's always a work in progress. There's a lot of friends that have, and there's these drinks called Feel Free. Are you guys familiar with these yet? It's an interesting one. It's they weren't anything that really resonated with me in the past, like kava and kratom. Have you guys heard of these substances? And so they came out with a drink that's a mixture of those two.
What's
And
this? What's the second one? Sorry, Charles. Carver, and where? What's the second one?
Kava and kratom.
I've not heard of that. Doug, have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. No.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So Carver is a Pacific nation,
Mhm.
and there's a couple of nations close to Australia which are big on Carver. So? Can you talk me through the other one, please?
Yeah, so kratom, the kind of the I tried it. It was like friends brought it over, and I was pretty impressed because it was definitely like a euphoric, felt like a bit of a heart opening conversationalist type of little inward journey with that little shot that they sell. And the further I kind of went down this rabbit hole, of everybody has their own perspective on it, but that, kava is essentially like a derivative, the same type of plant form as like opium. So it can be very addictive. And I noticed that like kind of slippery slope, and I was able to navigate those waters and take space from it before, because I heard some horror stories from friends that, this is like what a lot of people used to use to get off of like real heavy addictions to like heroin and stuff. They would, you know, resort to kratom. And then I've had friends tell me that like they were taking so much kratom that it was the toughest and worst, withdrawals and like detoxification process that they'd ever had. So, there's also that, diminishing return. That's interesting phenomenon, right?
Mm.
That, it's like you get this, you have a good experience with like a substance or something that you enjoy, and then you're, trying to experience that again and again, but there's like a diminishing effect on it. So you feel like you have to keep taking more and more and more. And I noticed that really early on with this, and that's why I, took space from it. But I've had some friends that have been really deep in it, and this is something that they sell at like gas stations here now. Like it's very prevalent. It's really like you see it everywhere now, even at like health stores and stuff. It's really interesting. So I would give a little like public warning announcement on that. Like do your research and know what you're getting into before you dive deep into that, because it is pretty potent and very addictive, I'd say. But so can anything be. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, my take on that with changing habits, a big thing in the beginning is recognition, which is exactly what Charles was just talking about then. Recognize, like in the beginning, it's like, oh, this is nice, but it's now recognizing what's, what's there. And if until we recognize we need to add something to our life and add it as a habit so that it becomes habitual, or we need to stop something, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. We're going to keep muddled up in that same energy. And, Charles, you gave the example before, and I'm not sure if you were trying to share that bit, but the bit I got from it is the unfortunate loss of your mother at 10, and then the two other loves of your life left you as well. To me, it was just like the energy was lingering there from your mum, and you didn't know how to deal with it, like what 10-year-old does, and what adult knows to come and help you, how to help you. And until you were able to go back to that original, you had that recognition. Why have these two new loves of my life left me after a time as well? Is it that you recognize that something needed to change in your life, and that, for me, that's just so important. And like for Andrew, you suggesting this topic today, it's like you've recognized potentially you've got a habit you want to change, or a habit like you want, like, how do I lock back into my swimming all the time? It's like I want to start something, or I want to stop something, or I want to replace something with something that I feel would be better. So that until we get that recognition, and for me, often that would come synchronistically or intuitively. The universe is going to pop something up on a billboard one day, on the, on a podcast I'm listening to the next day, in a conversation, with someone, I was like, oh wow, this is crazy, because I never hear this. It's just like, okay, it's time for me to start to recognize what's going on here. And yeah, and until we've got that recognition, we're not going, because if someone's listened to this podcast and just listened to Charles' suggestions there with how to, get the feel good things and all that, and it's an awesome system. But if people don't recognize that there's something in their life they need to change, there's a habit that's knocking 10 years off their life, or, there's a habit that's keeping their family at arm's length from them because they're just not nice people to be around. And until they can change that, that's so for me, that initial recognition, one way or the other, being open to that, and then it's like, oh, now what was that thing Charles was talking to me about? What were those half a dozen points Andrew read off at the beginning? Let me get into that. So for me, that's a big thing, like just having the smarts to listen to the signs, see the signs, listen to the messages that something needs to change, be added to your life, or stopped or changed into something, swapped into something different. And then the big effort goes into how starting that off.
Yeah, the pattern recognition went really deep, because as soon as I recognize, like, wow, these women I love keep leaving me, then it was like all these other things became clear intuitively. Like, wow, actually, I was showing up in an immature fashion in certain ways to subconsciously push them away, like an avoidant, attachment style. And so then, of course, they left, and then the moral of the story was that by learning, developing the inner peace process and the system for addiction allowed me to resolve that grief and actually feel and heal through that and gain the lessons from it, and now I have like a beautiful relationship with my mother and spirit. And that's right when I called in my queen. And now we have two beautiful girls and one boy on the way. This just yeah.
That's new news, isn't it? I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah, we just found out the gender yesterday. So it's
Awesome.
really
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when's he due?
End of September.
Okay.
Yeah. So could be a solstice baby. We'll see.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice. Yeah, great.
Would it be fair to say, because I am clearly in that category of someone who, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. But my sense of this topic is that I don't think there's a person who exists on this planet that wouldn't struggle with this in some form on occasion. And maybe it's how often it is for some people. Maybe there are people who are very structured, they're good lifestyle choices, but I imagine they even have their moments where they they go outside the preferred pathway. It's real.
Yeah.
And taking it to an extreme, anyone who goes to an AA meeting, all their energy is going into staying away from that old habit, and the support that goes with that journey. It's for me, it's a real thing, and maybe I'm just a bit overconscious of it. But yeah, I think it's real.
Have you ever listened to Dr. Bruce Lipton?
No.
Charles, you have? Yeah. He talks a lot about the guys. I don't know how old he is. He's got to be 70 or so. But he's the most polite, nice, humble guy to listen to. He talks about how we're programmed. Like 95% of our life is a program. It's almost like there's a computer chip. In the old days, it would have been a floppy disk. Now, like a little tiny silicon microchip plugged into side of our brain, and we've just got to realize it's there, it's plugged in, and we can pull it out and swap it over, and we can put a different program in. You know, we can pull that floppy out, we can run a different one, we can run the upgraded version, we can adjust it. And he explains it so simply. It's really, you know, so when you're saying, Andrew, absolutely everybody is in this boat. And yeah.
A gentleman by name of, I think it's Terry Smith, who's, I think, left us now, but he was a teacher of, trying to get humans to be the best version of themselves. And he would refer to these moments of challenge as the wizards in our life. And it might be a parent, it might be some boss you work for when you were young, and these people, even though they've left this earth, they still exist in your head and can take you or encourage you to go down paths that are not ideal through your own, rationalization of it. So, and that's the term that I use for me is, when I'm challenging whether I've got things where I want them to be on whatever subject, I'll ask myself the question, is there a wizard talking to me here that I need to call out and just disown that whole scenario, that whole situation, that whole dynamic? And particularly, I won't talk too long, but my mother was an incredibly strong-willed person, incredibly, and very successful in her own life because she would see an objective and achieve it, but sometimes there was collateral damage. And my family, I think we all, in our own way, still are trying to reconcile that. So yeah, for me, the wizard is the flag that comes up for me to say, Andrew, is this you thinking about this, or is this some ghost from the past that's trying to get you to go a certain way?
Yeah. Man, I remember I did an apprenticeship as a locksmith from 15 to 19, and my first boss, he was from the UK, and he'd come out to Australia, and man, he had some strange ways. But I mean, I've still got a few of his voice comes to my head quite often when I pick up a tool, because he taught me how to fit, the correct way, and there was only one way to use it, and da 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 da. And yeah, I mean, he definitely. I just hear his voice constantly when I work with tools. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, there's programs that serve and those that don't, that we installed early on. This happens so early in life, when we're installing those programs just from what we hear, what we see, what our parents do. And so many of us are running around with like Windows 2007 still. It's not serving us, and it's time for an update. I remember recognizing one about a decade ago, just noticing when I would wake up and go look in the mirror that it was this program of like looking for flaws. Like it would instantly go to, oh, well, there's there a wrinkle there, or what, is there like a gray hair? What, all just like looking for flaws and negative things. And so it just dawned on me. It was just like, that's hilarious that I've been like, participating in that program for so long, because there's so much else to look at and to appreciate. And so I just chose the lens of appreciation, and like feel like I've been getting younger every year since I, got rid of that program and installed a better one. And now it's like, yeah, sure, I have a couple gray hairs, some salt and pepper, but man, it sure looked good on Sean Connery, and it's shine of wisdom. And so I embrace it and like it. And it's helped me actually recognize like how much we involuntarily or unconsciously identify with thoughts that aren't serving us. That we're not our thoughts. They're just like waves floating by. I always picture like the seat of awareness out past the breaker surfing, because that's what really fills my cup out in the ocean. And I can just watch thoughts like waves, and you try to stop a wave, like good luck with that. It's just going to crash on you. But if you can just recognize like, oh yeah, there's that negative one I used to drop in on and try to surf, and then boom, you get pummeled by another negative wave, another thought, they'd come in a whole set of negative thoughts. And instead it's like you can always pull out of those, recognize it's just a thought, acknowledge it, let it float by, and then choose a better thought and that feels better in your system, that serves you. It's instant, I call it vacation vibration. It's like raises your state of being, to a more freedom, peaceful state just by choosing better thoughts. It's really a fascinating game that we could play in any moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew, when you came up with this subject, I went to Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and I thought, oh, I'll take some notes. And then I thought, no, I'm not taking notes from that. That book is so, for me, it's so spot on. I'm not going to butcher it. But I would just, have you heard? So Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's one of his older books. He's got multiple books. He's got meditate, and he has meditations of the same thing. And he takes you into a state, and he wants you to, in the beginning, really concentrate on what that habit is you want to break and recognize, sit and be in it and experience it. And the reason, and you're thinking, wow, but I want to get away from it. He wants you to recognize it so well and know everything about it, that whenever it tries to come back in, it's instant recognition. It doesn't get a foot in the door. You can hear it walking up the path to the locked door, and you go, I know those footsteps. And you yell out, turn around, go away. I'm not opening the door. It's that's his very first step, is that total, like, being in it, so that you always know when it's attempting to come at you again. And then he goes on and on with it. And he's just, I find he and Dr. Bruce Lipton, those guys, Greg Braden, those guys, they've got a real mix of how to how to get those, conquer those things. Yeah. So
I've read that book as well, and it's fascinating. The research he discovered as, there's they studied groups and literally watched their DNA and monitored their DNA as, a group would just focus on a crystal clear intention, and there wasn't a ton of change in the DNA. And then there's another group, they just focus on, heightened state of emotion, and not a ton of change in the DNA. However, when they combined the two, they had a heightened state of emotion with a crystal clear intention. It was like witnessing magic. It was like the DNA was unraveling, different genes were turning on, and it was like this, almost like becoming more energy than matter and opening up to the quantum field of possibilities. And I found that so fascinating, because that's, how we can choose to set our reticular activation system, reticular, the retina, which we see our reality through, activated to what it is that inspires us, what it is that we want, instead of the, downward spirals. And it's just fascinating, because that is so simple with the practice of, gratitude and intention. That's how I start my day. I breathe in gratitude. I got my beautiful girls, they're healthy, their smiles just light up the room, and just watching them sleep, it brings me peace, and so that just elevates my state. And then I'm crystal clear. I get clear intuitively in my heart, like, how would this be the best day? Like, what is it I want to feel, create, or experience? And sometimes it's just fun. Like, let's have experience the most joy today, And I've done this in the closest place to hell. They call it the DMV here. and it's like where you go to get your driver's license. These government buildings, everybody dreads it. It feels like time slows down. It's this, everyone hates going there. And so I was like, well, if I'm going there to get my new license, I'm gonna, bring some joy there. And that was my intention with gratitude, is to enjoy this experience and share some smiles and laughs. And sure enough, I went there, dropped into a meditation after I got my number, and sparked up a conversation with a kid next to me that had a knee brace on, and he's talking about how, he got an ACL injury and he was bummed out about it. And I said, have you ever tried meditation to accelerate your healing? He's like, no. Like, man, I can share the same meditation I used that helped me gain answers to healing naturally instead of going under the knife with surgery for devastating back injury. And he's like, cool. So I shared that with him, sparked up another conversation. Before you know it, the girl calls my number, and the women that work there are usually not the best charismatic characters in usually. So when I got up there, I said, man, I'm so happy to see you. You wouldn't believe how long I've been waiting. And she's like, what? Really? I was like, yeah. And I showed her my watch. And at the time, I just had a watch that just said now. It didn't even tell time. It was just a kind of a fun a souvenir watch. And she started cracking up. She's like, my husband has so many watches. He doesn't have that one yet. Girls, come see this. So it was like watching this ripple effect of, instead of everybody in zombie mode, it was like people were waking up, joining in the conversation. And it was just like this this wave of laughter and smiles. I shared a laugh with like 8 people in the closest place to hell, and left there, feeling amped, and like, I was the happiest guy in the DMV with my license.
Well done. Hey, Doug, I'm gonna drop off.
Yes.
Get in my car. I'm going to come on again briefly before I walk into this appointment. So I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah, no worries. Awesome.
4:44 here. Perfect timing.
Yeah, there you go. 7:44 here. So you just had daylight saving just start again?
Yep.
Yeah, I was telling Andrew just before you came on, I got caught yesterday with a Zoom call. I checked it out, my appointment last week with someone in the US, and yeah, beauty, great. And it's at 8 a.m. And then I wake up and 5:30, I look at my thing, and then it's like your call's at 7, and I'm like, what? Hang on. And then I quickly typed in, and last weekend you guys changed over, and my state, I live very close to the state border, and our state never has daylight saving, but the other state does. So it's a bit of a challenge there. I live that close to the border. I've got to turn my phone onto manual time change thing, because occasionally it would sense that I'm across the border, just with the the airwaves or whatever it is, and the frequencies, and and we get a few visitors to the house that happens to, they suddenly freak out, they look at their phone, they think they're late and want to leave. So yeah,
that's confusing.
Yeah.
Time. Interesting concept.
Yeah. Something you were talking about earlier there, and I just jotted a couple of notes down, and I've got the word emotion down there, and just with changing habits, how important experiencing those emotions, and of also, the emotion of, oh, I really want to like Andrew, I really want to get back in the pool, like continuing to do, or starting a whole new habit, like something that's interesting, exciting, going to the gym. And how many people drop off when they start going to the gym and exercising and all that sort of stuff. And I know, like for me, I've been doing ice baths for over a year, I don't have an ice bath at home, but we go to a center, and fortunately for me, I work a couple of days a week, and it's very close to where that is. So I always try and go before or after. But it's so when you do it regularly, it's something that you enjoy, that's good for your health, or you just brings a smile to your face or whatever. And that brings both, and most people shudder at the thought of ice baths. It's not while you're in there that it's enjoyable. It's always enjoyable when you get out. That's when you love it. When you're in there, it's like, but so I have the after effect, that afterglow, and it's, and I know it's raising all of the proper chemicals in my body, exaggerating all of those. And it's, I mean, this is not the right medical terminology, but suppressing the chemicals that aren't healthy for me, and exaggerating the ones that are, and I feel so much better, so much healthier, and that sort of thing. But it's also, I enjoy it so much because 75% of the people that go are male, and at least half of those guys are the gym guys. They're pumped with the muscles, and they come in and they go to get in the ice baths, and they keep standing up. They can't get down to their neck. And that just brings me great joy because I'm this skinny, like weedy guy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm up. I just go in, I'll do a big exhale, whoosh, and I'm up to my neck and I'm freezing. And, you're waiting for the timer. It's 4 minutes. And you don't have to stay 4 minutes and there's no pressure. You do what you want, but, you get regimented into the little beeper and then you go into the contrast pool, you go into the really hot tub and then back again. You keep swapping temperatures and it's really pushing the blood through the body. And but yeah, so it's that sort of thing. So it's the emotion of I did it. And every time I leave, it's just really good, really enjoyable. Yeah.
Oh, it's building a mental muscle as well. You're training yourself to build internal resiliency. That's why I love cold plunges as well. You feel accomplished after your mitochondria is lit up, you're energized and you feel like a Spartan warrior every time you get out. And so it's just that talking yourself into getting in initially, because you'll come out a Spartan warrior, 3 to 5 minutes later, if you can talk yourself into doing this. And what that does is it trains you to be okay with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like sometimes I don't even time it. I'll just be in the cold until I can find a level of comfort in there. So
Yeah.
usually around like the 3 minute mark or on. And that is a game changer because that is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you can, sit in the storm a little bit longer or allow yourself to feel some of the deeper emotions, the uncomfortable experiences, then you built that internal resilience.
Absolutely. I remember listening to Joe Rogan a couple of months ago, and he was talking about doing his jujitsu and cold plunges and all that sort of stuff. And he goes, if you can do hard things like regularly, like really hard things, everything else is a snack. He goes, I hear people complaining about, I can't reverse park. He goes, you go into ice bath for a few minutes, or you have someone who wants to tear your elbow out of its socket, in a jujitsu wrestle sort of thing or whatever. You do that sort of stuff regularly. You can like reverse parking's like, yeah, okay, let's just do it. I mightn't be good at it, but it's just do things. It makes everything else easier. And like, Andrew came up with this subject, changing our habits. And when we can change our habits to incorporate hard things. And I've been talking with my family about this in the last week or two, about potentially doing something new as a family that's really hard. And we've done hard things in the past, but this will be a whole new hard thing. And, it's part of the game of life. And it's just like it's a whole new level in the game. Are we game to attempt it? We're going to have to rely on every skill we've learned on the previous 10 levels of the game. And we're going to have to put them all together to get up to level 11. And if we get up there, it's going to be great, but it's going to be challenging, doing
Yeah,
hard things.
I think an important piece too, you kind of touched on a little bit earlier is like we've seen the classic like New Year's resolutionists, right? That are like, okay, I'm gonna go no sugar this year, or like I'm gonna hit the gym every day, like these just like big, hairy, kind of audacious goals that aren't very realistic. And so one of the reasons that this system works well is because first, not only are you getting really honest with the awareness of like this is a habit that's not serving me, and your recognition, but also how everything else that it's affecting in your life, right? Your business, your health, your relationships, and then as well as your self-trust and your integrity and your confidence. Because if we say we're going to do a giant New Year's resolution, right? I'm going to hit the gym 5 days a week, and then 3 weeks go by and you already missed a week. Every time we're not holding those agreements, we're chipping away at our self-trust, our integrity, and our confidence. And that allows the voice of self-doubt to get really loud. And then it keeps us playing small. It's like, well, I have this track record. I couldn't even do it for longer than 2 weeks. So shouldn't try anything else. The opposite of resilience, right? And doing the hard things. So it's like, instead, start with specific, measurable, and attainable goals, right? Like get some quick wins. And that might even be like, for a smoker, it's like just go half a day till noon, like something that you can attain. And then once you make it there, you get a healthy reward from your list, right? So you're reinforcing that neural pathway of like, tapping into that pharmacy naturally, whether it's swimming or, bike riding or something that you naturally get that same feeling that you're seeking out of the substance. Then, okay, let's reassess. Now I can go a full day tomorrow, right? So then you do another attainable goal. And this way you're building momentum. And it's really helpful because it's smart. It's important to get those big wins and recognize what's on the line when we're not holding our agreements. It's that self-trust and confidence and integrity is everything when it comes to your work in the world, moving through fear. It's the difference between playing small and having a plethora of deathbed regrets when you get to the end of your life, or playing full out in this arena, by holding integrity with your commitments and your agreements with yourself and with others. And so that's what is another like byproduct, huge win and like benefit of this system, is that not only are like people incrementally conquering their addictions, but they're building massive self-trust. They're like, man, I gave up nicotine. One of my clients, he's like, in South Africa, and he quit smoking using the system, and he channeled all this new energy into his new business and got way more fulfillment, long-term fulfillment than he would have just resorting to playing small and keep using this substance to escape what he's meant here to do. And so it's the path of long-term fulfillment. And by building that self-trust, confidence, and integrity, it makes it easier along that path. And it's such a strong muscle to build because you'll use it in every area of your life. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Talking about those building those muscles, like when you do have those runs on the board, you've done hard things, you've got something to call on, and it's like if you've got to lift something heavy up, and you think, oh, can I do? And you look at your arms and you think, yeah, I got enough muscles, I can do this. You can recognize past achievements that we used our habits well with, and we now have the confidence to do it. Or we have the opposite, as you said, when we've chosen to not, I don't know, whatever happened and we weren't successful, it's easier to recall that program off the computer disk that's inserted there, as we mentioned before. Very, very much. Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in here and say two things because I've left myself 4 minutes to get into the practice. First is I think the failure rate for New Year's resolutions is high. I think it's 80% or more fail. So that really links to what Charles outlined in terms of better ways of doing it. And a personal thing for me, I've finally learned, and maybe the hard way in some cases, to deal with the hard stuff first. So I was hopefully you're a person who would put off things, self-rationalize. But now, if it's a tough thing, either a tough discussion or it's something you don't like or whatever, but it's important, then I've gotten a lot better at actually putting it up the top of my list and talking to myself to do it. So, and I think that's been a benefit for me. Anyway, I'll see you guys. Have a great day, or I'm not sure, Charles, it's evening for you over there, isn't it? So have a nice evening, and again, congratulations for your growing family.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Thanks,
Andrew.
Bye.
It's all right. Yeah, he had a doctor's appointment. So yeah, he's taken us right to the end. He's got, what did he say, 3 minutes to go now till his doctor's going to call his name, he hopes. Yeah. No, that's it. It was a great topic, I think, that he came up with today. Like how do we form, what do we do with habits, breaking them, forming new ones? And I think a lot of times we think about just breaking old things, but as Andrew's example in the beginning, how does he continue swimming all the time, do something he enjoys, and to keep at that and because for him, like he talks about, the benefit is not just that he achieved that, but it's a meditative thing for him too. Following that black line up and down the pool, he's just in that state. And I haven't done a lot of laps in pools through the years, but I know what he means, getting into that groove, into that vibe where it's just very subconscious and you're flowing and the thoughts come and flow. And so habits, how do we start some better habits, and as well as how do we drop off some things that don't serve so well?
Yeah, important, very relevant topic for sure. You know,
Yeah.
It's good to have an array of healthy rewards, alternatives to the bad habit. Some of them can be really quick too. Like one of them is handstands or cartwheels. It's like, when's the last time you did a cartwheel or a handstand, right? So you held an agreement. You said, like, I'm not going to do sugar for the day, right? And you made it to the end of the day. You noticed some cravings, chose a cup filler instead from this list, and then you could do a quick couple cartwheels, and it evokes that, like, that energy, the inner child, the joy. It feels kind of silly but fun, and you can have a laugh about it with us. It's tapping into that same chemistry that's already within you. So you get good at becoming your own pharmacist, and then you need less of the external things or substances to feel fulfilled.
Exactly.
Game changer.
Yeah. And it's like an exponential curve, it just, the more you get into it, the easier it becomes, and the rewards get greater, and it's easier to do. But it's also easy to wallow down in the low end of the exponential curve and see no reward and, stay down there. But yeah, you just do the hard things, tackle it. And once you start to rise up out of that, like that, the curve on the graph, you're up and you start to rise up quickly, and you keep yourself, and your head comes up out of the thing and the mire, and you can see above, other things. You're not better than anyone, but you can start to see the rewards of it. And you're thinking, the air's fresher up here. This is nicer. I am enjoying this more. I'm going to keep doing this, yeah. And we haven't got as many people pulling us back down, holding us in that mud at the beginning of that curve where it's just it still seems like a flat line. Yeah. Yeah.
Build momentum. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that self-trust that you can build, by just setting attainable goals, wins, just builds massive momentum. And then it's like you've gone so far that you don't want to look back, and you stay on that path of, taking space from it, and it just feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
Building
And
your trust.
Those hard things don't seem so hard then.
Right.
That like you were struggling with reverse parking all your life, and now you're starting to do other unusual, you're learning to skydive or scuba dive or take ice baths or learn karate or learn to do a cartwheel. I've never been able to do a cartwheel. When I was a kid, I was just I watched. I had a few friends who do them, and I was just then I'm thinking, yeah, Charles, I'd have to learn at 60 how to do a cartwheel.
Hey, there's your next hard thing on your list.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
And there's a guy that teaches handstands and charges like $5,000 for his coaching program, but it's, he sells it in that you're not just learning handstand, you're learning building internal resilience, alignment, all these other things. It's really fascinating. So I'm sure there's somebody out there on YouTube teaching cartwheels too, if you want.
Probably, yeah. I'll look it up. Yeah,
hopefully they
yeah.
don't charge that much for cartwheels.
Yeah, yeah. My 22-year-old son, he started doing the gym thing a couple of years ago, and now he does handstand push-ups all the time. He's got these little metal brackets. They're at the house here, and he comes around. He gets out in the middle of the backyard and does half a dozen push-ups while his hands. So, and I remember him a couple of years ago practicing. It was through COVID when he, stuck at home. Like he's 22 now, so he was in his late teens, and he started just doing handstands. And so his whole half his gym regime is weights, and the other half is like calisthenics, where he's using his body weight all the time. Or then he starts to strap 20-kilo weights around his waist, and he's doing like pull up, like not just chin ups, but full pull ups all the way up to, the waist, and then he's adding more and more weight, and so it's
That's legit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's got the whole Instagram following. He's got half a dozen different companies have contacted him from all these videos he puts on Instagram, and he's, advertising their clothing and their protein drinks and all of the things,
That's great.
Yes. And he just put his little videos on. They all came to him. So he's been doing hard things, I tell you. Like, he's 3 older brothers now, all just telling him, just put your shirt back on. Because he's chiseled, mate. He's like, he looks like a machine. But it's very proportional. It's not over exaggerated, because half of his exercise is calisthenics. It's not just iron pumping the weight. But very good. Well, mate, excellent catching up with you. And as Andrew said, congratulations on your growing family with September, the boy to the tribe. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And is your house big enough for another child?
Yeah. We're also open to upgrading. It's amazing how like a 4-bedroom house can feel pretty small after a while.
Yeah, well, mate, we now just have my wife and I here, and we've got 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and it's like, oh man, like it's too big now, like we're at the other end of life, and
Yep.
I hear you.
Life just keeps getting more exciting.
It does, yeah, all the changes all the time. It's excellent.
Here we grow.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, man. That's excellent.
Take care, Doug.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.